What about this business that we're going to stifle and swelter? We've seen the headlines, hottest day ever and so on. Is there any trend since World War I of days in Australia over 40 degrees? I mean, we've got a graph here, which we can show you. Now, as you look at that, it goes from way back 1908 until 1910 until, I can't quite read that upside down, 2015. There's barely any movement there. So the alarmist argument that climate change is producing a trend towards dryness is simply inaccurate, Joe.
Well, and if you look at the raw data on these numbers from the graph, you'll see that they've actually adjusted it twice. And each time they adjusted it, strangely, the past gets cooler. All those thermometers from World War I, do you know, they were recording too high. What's the bad luck of that, Alan? They had to adjust these things, remembering that thermometers, even then, were a 300-year-old technology. We knew how to read a thermometer. We knew how to build a Stevenson screen. And so we had good quality sites back in 1915 that they'd adjusted down. But the latest sites, which we've put near airports, near car parks, incinerators, hot asphalt, those kind of sites, they've stayed the constant numbers that have been recorded through these electronic gizmos, which are so much more responsive to tiny flashes of heat. And so the record keeps changing. And in that graph you just saw, by the way, 1910 was a kind of cooler era in Australian history, because that ignores the Federation drought and the super hot years of the 1890s.
Yeah, just come back to this point that we keep on making. I mean, if you want to avoid these firestorms, you have to cut down the fuel load. That's what Joe is saying, and that's common sense. Now, she made this point that Fuel Reduction WA has reduced fires there for 60 years. She's also pointed out that the worst record, in a piece that she wrote, the worst recorded fire in Australia was in 1851. 5 million hectares went up in flames. Joe, where was this carbon dioxide problem in 1851?
Well, carbon dioxide was ideal then, wasn't it? You know, it was supposedly brilliant. And despite that, those fires from the awful fires of 1851 were just shocking. And I've seen in the longer run, I've seen things saying, you know, Australia settled by Europeans in kind of the late 1700s. It took a long time for the fuel loads to build up. And the really bad fires didn't start until the kind of 1840s and 1850s. It takes a long time to get that pyroclastic fuel load, but that's when we started to see it. And, you know, obviously with the practices of Aboriginal fire, cool fires and the constant burning that they used to do, and Captain Cook, I think, said, and Flinders said they could see smoke everywhere they went. And so we changed those practices. We haven't learnt the lesson, and you know, we know the lesson.
Okay. Well, one final word of advice to our viewers out there who are going to be reading all these alarmist and hysterical headlines. What are we saying as the fire season approaches? Get rid of the fuel. Hey?
Yes, but the fuel, Alan, the fuel is carbon, isn't it? Because they want carbon reduction, which means locking up those carbon credits in our forests and native growth. And that means that from about 2000 onwards, we stopped allowing farmers to clear native regrowth because we didn't want to lose those Kyoto credits, did we? And that means we've increased the fuel load, and we're pretending that's saving us from bad weather and firestorms and stuff like that. Plus, don't forget the solar panels on your roof. That stopped fire too, right? I mean, what kind of witchcraft are we living in, Alan? You know, how do you stop fires? Put solar panels on your roof.